Welcome, welcome, come in from the cold. What, this robe? It's just something I threw on and then kept on during a 12-hour raid last night. I'm using this cocoa to mask the smell. Anyway, now we can commence reminiscing about all the gaming news highlights of this year, because it's the 2023 inaugural Game-Linked Christmas Special, Poggers! Hundreds, perhaps thousands of games came out this year, but so many of them were actually good, it's led to people calling 2023 the best year in gaming. Other people are also calling it the worst, but we'll get to that in time. For now, no tears. There were some surprises, like Tango Gameworks' Hi-Fi Rush, but there are also some very expected bangers. Tears of the Kingdom came out, and oh boy, have none of us beaten it yet because there's been so many games this year. Street Fighter 6 set a new bar for fighters. Final Fantasy 16 was slept on a little bit, but then there's Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, how can I express in words how much I have not beaten it yet? But by Saloon, I do love it. And Jacob loves it more. From Software's Armored Core 6 surprised players by allowing them to survive for more than 5 seconds at a time. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 received overwhelming praise. Super Mario's Wonder maintains the franchise's pedigree, and Alan Wake 2 somehow delivered on a decade of anticipation. If you prefer your games with fewer A's, there were many to choose from. Pizza Tower puts players in the shoes of Pizzaiolo Peppino Spaghetti, a character designed to make Mario seem less offensive to Italy by comparison. I didn't help, I'm sorry. Dredge let you captain an old, busted boat over rough Lovecraftian waters. Dave the Diver tells the heartwarming story of Dave the Diver. Sea of Stars is a love letter to classic turn-based JRPGs.
It's pronounced Jerpergs?
Jerpergs. Digital Eclipse made learning fun again with interactive documentary The Making of Karateka, and the lead gameplay designer of Limbo and Inside gave us Cocoon, a game that has nothing to do with the Ron Howard film of the same name. We even got a bunch of remakes and remasters. The Dead Space remake came out, now with a fully voiced protagonist. Meanwhile, Samus Aran continued exercising her right to remain silent when Nintendo surprise launched Metroid Prime Remastered on the Switch. Unfortunately, that didn't meet this year's quota of 2 third-person survival horror remakes, so Capcom gave Resident Evil 4 its 37th release, but with ray tracing this time. Unfortunately, as is now standard, a few games needed a bit of TLC after launch. Star Wars Jedi: Survivor's release really emphasized the colon at launch, and apparently it still does in some ways, although, editorializing here, I played it after all the fixes were out, and it's probably one of my favorite Star Wars things of all time. Take that. Diablo 4 started very strong, and then shot itself in the foot, and then the other foot, and then got new bulletproof cybernetic feet, so it started shooting itself in the arm. Mortal Kombat 1 had a rocky launch, especially on the Nintendo Switch port. It didn't just look half-baked, it looked completely raw.
Gordon Ramsay does not approve.
CD Projekt Red released the Phantom Liberty expansion for Cyberpunk 2077 alongside the free 2.0 update that proved the studio remembered how to make a game. It just took them 3 years after said game's release, more on that later, while Bethesda is still working on their newest title, I think. Man. That game originally had Jacob and then he was supposed to be here to sing the Starfield song. He's working from home today, but he did show it to me ahead of time, so I'm going to try and do it justice. Starfield, Starfield, Starfield. But after it had Jacob like that, it started to make him feel as empty as most of its planets. I mean, sure, it's an IGN 7, but that's like calling someone a Mortal Kombat 1 on Nintendo Switch 10. It's not exactly a compliment. Next up, the domination of this year's news cycle by Microsoft's acquisition of Activision-Blizzard-King. If you don't already know who that is, they made Candy Crush. In January, the FTC tried to get a preliminary injunction approved to block the acquisition before the official trial in August. And that's when we started learning a lot more than we bargained for. It turned out Microsoft considered buying over 100 game developers before deciding on the one. It's like The Bachelor, except instead of getting to marry the most middle American man producers could find, you get to be owned by Phil Spencer.
Where's my rose, Phil?
Poorly redacted documents from the proceedings taught us a lot of Sony's secrets, and taught Sony a valuable lesson about the effectiveness of a Sharpie. In July, the FTC's injunction request was denied, which essentially left one country, the UK, as the one place blocking the deal, though they eventually agreed to negotiate acceptable terms for the acquisition to succeed. The FTC tried to appeal the preliminary injunction ruling before just withdrawing its case altogether. But after a massive Xbox leak, which we'll talk about later, the FTC then announced that same month they would unwithdraw their case. Unfortunately for the FTC, that absolute power move was slightly undercut just 2 weeks later when the acquisition just went through. But that won't stop the US regulator from seeking perhaps the most expensive divorce in history. I just hope the kids will be okay. Meanwhile, the rest of the games industry was very much not okay, as many game designers lost their jobs. We don't have the time nor the heart to go over every job loss, so here are the lowlights. Microsoft decided to start the year off with a bang by taking 10,000 jobs out behind the barn amid the company's Activision merger, with studios like 343 Industries losing a lot of talent. Unity cut 300 jobs and then cut 600 more. EA also made many cuts, even firing almost every QA tester for Apex Legends via Zoom. Classy. Rockstar owner Take-Two, Amazon, and Meta all cut gaming jobs. Ubisoft made multiple cuts, and so did CD Projekt Red and BioWare. On a lighter note, Darkwood developer Acid Wizard, which sounds like a friend I want to make, announced their team would be taking a voluntary hiatus for 5 to 10 years until they get their together. On a slightly heavier note, massive gaming Hydra Embracer Group cut 900 jobs in the first half of the year and then kept cutting them because they didn't bother to check their finances before buying every game studio they laid their eyes on. Epic Games laid off over 800 people, despite being valued at $31.5 billion. Perhaps the most shocking layoffs, though, were made by Hasbro. After cutting 800 jobs in January, the company announced 1,100 more this month. Many of those let go worked for subsidiary Wizards of the Coast, the publisher of Magic the Gathering and D&D, despite their record performance. In the memo announcing the workforce reduction, Hasbro CEO Chris Cox said layoffs were a last resort and a lever we must pull to keep Hasbro healthy. Cox must know what he's talking about. Otherwise, why would he have received $9.4 million in compensation last year? It's because he's so smart. What? I feel some kind of Christmas magic coming on. Which is weird because it's Boxing Day. Whoa!
Now it's time for Quick Bits, brought to you by TomToc. If you've got a Steam Deck for Christmas and need a way to protect it, look no further than TomToc. They have a variety of cases and travel bags designed to protect your Steam Deck in the best way possible. Check out the Armor Case if you need something light and portable to protect your Steam Deck from even the worst of drops. Looking at you, Linus. Or you can try their Fancy Case for a sleek and minimalist look with maximum protection. And if you're in need of something with extra storage, check out the Arcos travel bag that has extra space for all of your accessories. Learn more about TomToc at the link below. Wait, the Kringle's leaving! Ho ho ho!
Oh, Gloria in the highest. All right, we're back. Bungie used a slightly different strategy than they have in the past this year. First, they released Destiny 2's Lightfall DLC to thunderous boos. Then they tried to fill in some of the holes in Lightfall's story with a cutscene made with fan art, which was news to that artist. Whoops. But apparently they did make it right with that guy, and they made some positive strides this year. They won a historic lawsuit against a player who repeatedly harassed one of Bungie's community managers and that community manager's family, setting legal precedent that could help protect future victims of online harassment. Later this year, this momentous accomplishment was undercut when many staff were laid off, including not only one of the lawyers responsible for that win, but the majority of the company's community management team as well.
I mean, they're very protected, they're just unemployed now.
Not only is it possible Bungie fired the very community manager they fought so hard to protect, and one of the lawyers that did some of that fighting, they also gutted the team that earned Destiny 2 a nomination for Best Community Support at the Game Awards. While it was initially thought that these layoffs were the decision of Sony, who now owns Bungie, it was revealed that Bungie's own leadership decided to cut so many jobs in order to save their own. Following this winning decision, Destiny 2's player count hit an all-time low, and Bungie released a $15 starter pack they marketed as a way to help jumpstart newer players, which they then removed from sale after the few Destiny 2 players remaining pointed out it was essentially a ripoff. Or, as Bungie themselves put it, the starter pack was not something bringing joy. A phrase that could describe many of Bungie's decisions this year. Someone might be getting a little coal in their stocking. Speaking of coal in the stocking, Unity Technologies, creators of popular game engine Unity, suddenly decided that their business model was wildly unsustainable. So they decided to charge Unity game developers with a retroactive sliding scale per install royalty fee that could take up to 16% of a game's revenue. Unity stock prices dove, but luckily, multiple Unity executives, including CEO John Riccitiello, sold thousands of shares of their own stock in the weeks prior to the announcement of the new fees. What was that all about? Unity also quietly deleted a GitHub repository that tracked license changes shortly before deleting a clause that lets developers use the terms of service from the version of Unity their game shipped with. After several days of intense backlash, Unity apologized and walked the policy back. Then, less than a month after the original change was announced, CEO Riccitiello resigned. This sounds like a new speedrun category. Lose your job, any percent. 2023 was the year we tried sticking AI into absolutely everything. So you better believe it was in games too. Gaming media company Gamers with a U, that's why I said it like that, laid off around 40% of their staff, then posted a job listing for an AI editor, whose duties included pumping out 250 articles of barely filtered AI-generated news slurry every week.
Why would they respect editors? They can't even spell.
Several voice actors from Skyrim firmly asked modders not to use AI clones of their voices to make smut. Seems reasonable. World of Warcraft players heavily upvoted an excited post about the game's fantastic new feature, Glorbo, successfully honeypotting more than one AI site into credulously regurgitating a bunch of made-up nonsense. Shortly after, Destiny 2 players started posting about a mysterious secret boss. It's Glorbo once more! And boom, got him again. Activision launched its new real-time voice chat moderation for Call of Duty, while The Finals was criticized for its use of AI-generated voiceover commentary. Xbox released a transparency report that included a look at its AI-powered moderation tool, Community Sift, and Unity released Muse, a suite of AI game development tools, whose major selling point is that its training database isn't built on a foundation of open theft. Yay! It's still an open legal question. We're figuring it out. Finally, the co-creator of Silent Hill Ascension officially denied rumors that the interactive web series was written by AI. I guess this is a good reminder that even if AI writing can be bad, there's a human being out there with hopes and dreams who can definitely do it worse. Now, what kind of a year in gaming video would this be if we didn't talk about all the gaming leaks? Because this jackdaw had more holes than the plot of Kingdom Hearts. Pluto's a pet dog, but Goofy's not? Makes no sense. Anyway, back in May, the heavily anticipated Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom leaked in full 2 weeks before its release date, meaning pirates were playing it on emulators at 4K and crazy frame rates by the time the game actually launched. But strangely, I don't feel bad for Nintendo. Okay, a little bit, because it's Christmas, Boxing Day. Later, Monster Energy leaked Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, and everyone thought we were getting a fancy remaster of Red Dead Redemption thanks to leaked listings and a new logo on Rockstar's website, which turned out to be a re-release of the game for Switch and PS4 that's more like a demaster, right? 4 out of 10 pun. Leaks of Starfield's planetside boundary pop-ups triggered concerns about the game that turned out to be blown out of proportion. The game had much bigger problems. And so did Xbox when they suffered what might have been the biggest leak in gaming history, revealing roadmaps for upcoming hardware, including a hybrid cloud console and a controller that connects directly to cloud servers Stadia style, because that went so well. The leak also provided a meaty list of upcoming games in the Doom, Dishonored, Elder Scrolls, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Indiana Jones franchises, along with an email featuring Phil Spencer admitting that even Nintendo isn't safe from his appetite for gobbling up every video game company on the planet until the globe just looks like a big Xbox logo. Just chasms. In November, the 20th anniversary edition of Beyond Good and Evil leaked in its entirety, forcing Ubisoft to unsuccessfully try to scrub it off the internet before being forced to acknowledge the game's existence. Meanwhile, GTA 6 fans were so eager for leaks, they were finding clues in pictures of the moon. So of course, the GTA 6 trailer leaked a day early. It's only proper.
Suckers, the moon isn't real.
Like birds. But 2023 ended with a massive leak to rival the Xbox One. Insomniac, developer of Sony's beloved Spider-Man games, refused to pay ransomware hackers, who then dumped over a terabyte of gameplay videos, roadmaps, concept art, and more for a slew of their upcoming titles, followed by an actual playable build of their Wolverine game. Unfortunately, this leak also led to the personal details of Insomniac staff being exposed, which is not in the Boxing Day spirit at all, unlike other hacks, which are usually just the giant corporation equivalent of having somebody give you little tickles. Like, I don't want that, but it's not that bad. But let's end this old jamboree with a nice feel-good story. That's right, CD Projekt Red had a bit of a redemption arc this year, depending on who you ask. The company's vice president of PR admitted they needed to fix the relationship with players, a very astute observation. Less astute was that same VP's belief that Cyberpunk 2077 was better at launch than you might think given how it was received, and that it became a cool thing not to like it, only proving that sometimes the cool thing is right. Despite the bad blood many gamers had with CDPR, the company still became larger than Ubisoft. Though maybe that's because gamers liked Ubisoft even less. But CDPR pulled out all the stops to hype Phantom Liberty, Cyberpunk's one and only expansion. The lead scene programmer accidentally implied that insufficient cooling while playing Phantom Liberty could cause your PC to catch fire. It was an interesting marketing tactic, but it seemed to work. The expansion and the game's free 2.0 update received warm reviews from critics. That's putting it lightly. I think it's fair to say people love this game now. Then, despite saying they would stop development on the game, a 2.1 update was released, finally adding the fully functional Metro system they said would be in the game when it launched 3 years ago. Mission accomplished. And mission accomplished on this delectable gaming news roundup episode. GameLinked only existed for half of this year, so we can't wait to exist for the entirety of 2024 and see what wild gamery shenanigans the forthcoming year will bring. Merry New Year, Happy Christmas, and we'll see you on the other side. After one more regular 2023 episode on Thursday. It's kind of anticlimactic.